I now give the floor to His Excellency Marcelo Ebrard Casaubon, Minister for Foreign Affairs of Mexico. Honorable Minister, you have the floor.
Señor Presidente.
Mr. President, distinguished heads of state, heads of government, and delegates, it is an honor for me today to address you. I'm doubly honored because this is a very high rostrum, the highest of all, and because I represent a new government of Mexico, recently elected, which has not yet been in power for a year. The government is headed by Andrés Manuel López Obrador. The objective, the purpose of my government is to take charge of the fourth transformation of Mexico. In its history, Mexico has had three major transformations. The first was the independence of Mexico. The second was the liberal reform headed by Benito Juárez and the restoration of the Republic. And the third was the Mexican Revolution. Today, we are in the fourth transformation. And what this means is that it's not only a change of government, it's also a change of regime in Mexico. What is the purpose of this fourth transformation? President López Obrador has asked himself how to summarize best what he proposes to do. And first of all, what we propose to do in Mexico is put an end to corruption, separate the economic power from the political power, and install respect for the standards of the Republic and of austerity, and to have a different relationship with society from that which we had in recent years. Secondly, we wish to reduce inequality in our country because, as you are aware, we still have more than 52 million people living in poverty. Even though we are one of the largest economies in the world, with a major and successful export platform. Reducing inequality, then, is the second great cause. The third is to increase economic growth on the basis of self-confidence with productivity, innovation, the ability to organize, and a presence across the world. And that is what Mexico is doing today. And the fourth objective, as a result of the first three, is for Mexico to be a safe society and for us to have peace and security for Mexican families. To summarize, Mexico has recovered its self-confidence. And today, what I would like to tell you is that one of the first things of interest to us is to strengthen, broaden, and deepen our participation in the multilateral system, to effective multilateralism. We are aware that these are difficult times, that there are many challenges and risks for global coexistence, for security, for peace between nations. And it is time for Mexico, renewed and secure, to broadly participate in an intense way to strengthen our multilateral order and its roots. This is why Mexico recently presented its candidacy to be a member of the Security Council in 2021. And also, in many of the important areas of activity and Mexico's priorities, we've sought the support of the United Nations Organization in these months, and we will continue to do so by adhering and fully participating in the causes that we all defend. First of all, I should say that our foreign policy and our participation in the United Nations Organization is going to be guided by the principles of Mexican public life, of non-intervention, self-determination of peoples, peaceful resolution of conflicts and disputes. And for that reason, in the area of Latin America and the Caribbean, I'd like to share with you that Mexico opposes measures such as the blockade of Cuba or the imposition of sanctions on countries. And we advocate for dialogue and communication to be used so that peoples and nations can resolve their disputes. Peace is based on policy as a method, not on the exercise of force. We are committed to defend and expand the values of liberty and human rights. Mexico will resolutely participate to support the call made by the Secretary General of the United Nations, Antonio Guterres, to speed up our work to prevent climate change, to redouble our efforts. We've already presented additional actions, and we believe that it's an issue of the survival of humanity, and therefore there can be no delay and no excuse when it comes to making these commitments. We also believe that Mexico is going to participate intensively in the area and the promotion of solutions to migratory flows and the inequalities we are seeing in several regions of the world. It is sufficient to say that this year, so far, in Central America and Mexico, there are migratory flows that have broken the records of previous years. We're talking of 1,300,000 people moving. So we're in one of the regions with the greatest migratory flows in the world. Mexico has proposed to the United Nations, and I would like to thank the Secretary General at this point for his support. We asked that he supports CEPAL, which is the instrument of Latin America and the Caribbean for development, to develop a comprehensive plan for the south of Mexico, Honduras, Guatemala, and El Salvador. This plan was presented yesterday with the participation and support of 18 agencies of the United Nations and of 35 countries so far. I mentioned effective multilateralism because we fully adhere to multilateralism and because we believe it is the most effective way that we have to resolve the major problems that the world faces today. In the case of migration, we believe that coercive measures have no prospect of success. We believe that migration should be an option. It should not be forced because of insecurity and poverty. And therefore, we have great expectations from this comprehensive development plan, which I just mentioned. And Mexico has offered its cooperation to move this forward over 5 times this year. In this way, we wish to demonstrate that with decisiveness and commitment and the participation of several countries, we can create in the Central American region over 60,000 jobs in just 1 year. And in this way, we will be realizing options for people where they live, and people will not be forced to migrate. I'd also like to indicate that we're very grateful, and we will continue participating with the United Nations to guarantee transparency in all major decision-making of the Mexican government in the months and years to come in order to speed up its development. We have invited UNOPS and several agencies of the United Nations which are participating with us in this major struggle to put an end to corruption. We are advancing together. We will continue to do so. Just a few days ago, I said that the government of Mexico considers itself to be a feminist government. We are going to demonstrate this we are demonstrating this with our commitments and our actions over our term. And we believe that gender equity is the very basis of an equal society. We cannot change social reality without a deep, far-reaching commitment to promote gender equity. This is why the government of Mexico will support all the efforts of Beijing Plus 25 and the ongoing initiatives of the United Nations organization. I'd also like to mention that we do not want to see anybody persecuted because of their sexual orientation. We are an active, decided, and resolved government when it comes to protecting the rights and the freedoms of individuals, including their sexual preferences. Persecution divides us. Exclusion destroys hope. This is why we must be committed to the defense of the rights and freedoms of individuals. Of course, we believe, and Mexico will make this known at the UNESCO Convention, that efforts must be redoubled in order to effectively protect the cultural heritage of all peoples. In many fora, Mexico has expressed the opinion that the international community must not permit the pillaging of the historical and cultural legacy of peoples. And we will be actively participating in order to ensure that this heritage is protected. We will make common cause with other peoples and nations represented here who indicated the same concern. We are concerned and we are working on the fight against terrorism. Just a few weeks ago, in August, we had, and in part we suffered from, the effects of the tragedy in El Paso, Texas. Amongst the victims, there were many Mexican citizens, both men and women. This event, this tragedy, was linked. In fact, it was indicated by the perpetrator, and it was inspired by what happened in Christchurch, New Zealand. So we must be aware that white supremacy, the ideas of civilization replacement are having a clear effect, as the Secretary General indicated, and we must put our efforts together in order to respond to this. And this means not only prevention, it means that we must take every possible action to prevent further events of this kind from taking place. But we must also wage a war of civilization, a war of rationality, to combat these ideas that jeopardize the very basis of our coexistence, not only in nations, but on a worldwide scale. The individual who perpetrated this attack uploaded a document 20 minutes before the attack took place saying that the Latino community were his targets, similar to the attacker in Christchurch who explicitly said that his targets were Muslims. Mexico is going to resolutely participate with other countries represented here and with the United Nations organization in order to respond to this threat to coexistence and to the very existence of democracy, to which all members of the United Nations are committed. I mentioned that what we seek is a more just society in Mexico, a safer society. And we also wish to see multilateralism stronger throughout the world, Mr. President. We have a critical view of what is happening today. We must strengthen multilateralism, and we must contain unilateral tendencies that have been springing up everywhere. We have this critical view, and this is why we want to be members of the Security Council. This is why we are here today with you, and this is why we are proposing reforms and will propose further reforms in the months to come. But we are aware that the United Nations organization and multilateralism must be strengthened. And they are the home of the best causes in the world. Mr. President, ladies, gentlemen, if you allow, to conclude, I wish to say that Mexico has recovered its self-confidence. Mexico has something to share with you. Mexico shares causes like those indicated by the Secretary General in his opening address to this General Assembly. And we have everything we need to make major progress in this generation, major progress in multilateralism that was funded through the United Nations organization. I would like to conclude by reading some verses of the poet king, Netzahualcoyotl. He says, "How am I to leave? Shall I leave nothing of myself on earth? How is my heart to act? Do we come to live, to sprout on earth in vain? At least, let us leave flowers, let us leave songs." Thank you very much.
I thank His Excellency, the Foreign Minister of Mexico, for his statement.